Do not adjust your digital device. What you are about to see and hear may shock and appall you. Join our hosts as they encounter countless thrills, spills, chills, and hilarity as they explore the very weirdest in pop culture. The following media is so strange, so beyond the scope of what is normal, it will make you ask the question, why does this exist? And a 5 and a 4 and a... Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Why Does This Exist? I'm Chris.
And I'm Rob.
And today we are going to be discussing... Well, first of all, Happy New Year, you filthy animals. Before we get into anything else.
Yeah.
Happy New Year. We know that we apologize that we attempted to end 2022 on a banger, and we ended up having it kind of fall a little sloppy. We apologize to our good friend Holtzfeuer. There was something going on with the recording program that we were using, and it ended up making his voice super echoed, and a little bit on yours too, Rob. And I'm still not entirely sure how that happened, but we have had the same problems with that software in the past a couple of times, a little more early on in the podcast, and we're using something else today. We are using our special guest Craig here. If you don't know what Craig is a bot that can actually record all of your stuff in Discord, and he will split the tracks up for you. He'll get it in like various formats. We're giving it a whirl today, so if this is a good one, then Craig's gonna stick around.
Yeah.
If not, Craig is a bear, and we'll just feed him to wolves.
If Craig botches, then we're gonna friggin' make him go the way of the Shockmaster.
Oh, God.
We're gonna bury him.
I thought you were gonna say just tripping over himself as he enters the room, but sure.
Yeah.
All right. Well, anyway, we are Why Does This Exist? We are a podcast that talks about the very weirdest in pop culture, whether it is a strange movie like we just did and we are about to do, or a video game, which we have coming up, or a comic book series, or anything of that nature. If it's weird, we'll get into it at some point or another. Now, you can find us and support us in a number of ways. One of the ways you could do that is by finding us on social media, on Twitter, which we don't really use and we didn't really use beforehand. Or you can find us on Facebook. I believe that's facebook.com/whydoesthisexist or whydoesthisexistpod. I don't quite remember because it's not in front of me right now, even though it should be. You can just search us up. You'll find us. Look for the logo, and people send us strange things all the time. Like our good pal Muhammad, who keeps sending us some strange things and tagging us in the wackiest of situations, such as buff cakes. If you're in the mood for a funky cake, and for some reason you have a fantasy of being picked up and carried away to a faraway land by an absolutely ripped and chiseled baby Yoda, well, that's something. And I guess it's the fantasy for you to make reality. These are some of the strange things that Muhammad has sent us. I don't know why someone does it, but they do it. But you can also support us on Discord. There's a way, and the only way to join that is by going over to Patreon. And you could go over to patreon.com/whydoesthisexist. There is a way that you could give us money on Discord, but we got to let you in the server, and it's very new, so I don't quite know how it works, so I won't talk to that just yet. I believe it's called Server Boost, but I gotta look that up. You can find us over on patreon.com/whydoesthisexist. You can give us as little as $1 or as much as you want, and we'll let you into the Discord. You can hang out with us, you can yell at us, and we can all just talk trash, and then you could feed us some ideas if you got some weird things going on. You can also email us at whydoesthisexistshow@gmail.com. And you can also read some fun articles and such on our site whydoesthisexistpod.com. We are going to be moving a lot, if not all of the articles and future articles. We will be moving that over to the Patreon. Just simply because it makes a little bit more sense to do that way. So we will be doing that in the future. But anyway, we hope that each of you had very happy and healthy holidays and are having a very happy and healthy new year. And if one of your resolutions is to torture your friends, well, then send them over to this show. That's the news. Here's the weather. You are now about to witness the strength of street knowledge from a ragtag group of rogues, being recorded by Craig for the first time ever. So let's get on with the goddamn show. Beverly Hills Ninja, talk to me, baby. What's going on with this movie?
Well, Beverly Hills Ninja is an interesting movie in that it was a time where like there were a lot of martial arts comedy films, but for the most part they usually starred Jackie Chan. This one, however, stars Chris Farley.
Oddly enough,
Yes, but it's a funny movie. Chris Farley, of course, plays a ninja. Called Haru,
well, funny
and
depending on who you are, because a lot of people hate this movie, but a
well,
lot of
yeah,
people
a lot
like
of
this
people hate
movie
this
too.
movie, but I
There
think I
doesn't.
like
It
it.
seems like a movie that there's not a middle ground on it.
Yeah. It was Chris Farley's last movie, so I think that's why it gets some
Unfortunately.
mixed feelings as well. It was his swan song, so
Mhm.
uh, and he passed away 11 months after this was released. Actually, so technically, it was his last movie that was released while he was alive, because I believe he was in something else that came after. I don't know off the top of my head. Let me see if I see his filmography. Oh, okay. So there's actually two movies that he had starred in, um, that were released posthumously. So this was the last movie released while during his lifetime. Um, anyway, Chris Farley plays a ninja named Haru. Well, so he's obviously a white man that was as a baby left in this clan of ninjas care
The
in
plot is
Japan.
very similar to that of Kung Fu Panda,
Yeah.
actually. Except, well, Kung Fu Panda is a more beloved movie and
Yes.
series, where this this is. I would say it definitely hasn't aged well over time.
No. And it's not Chris
Um,
Farley's best movie by far, but I still
no.
think it's funny. Personally, I like it. It's like it's lowbrow. Like it's not like, like I said, it's not his best movie, and but some of the gags are pretty funny. There's obviously a lot of slapstick and like body humor because that's Chris Farley, you know.
Hmm.
A lot of the joke comes from the fact that he's a ninja, but he's like also this big fat guy.
Yeah,
Um
like, and he's a total klutz.
yeah.
Like, the whole reason why the ninjas even really, like, take him in and make him a ninja is because when they find him, they see this white baby who, like, was found in a shipwreck or whatever, and he's somehow survived. So there's a prophecy that there will be a great white ninja
Yes.
that will come to the ninja clan and save the world and everything, and they believe it to be him until they eventually realize it's not him.
Yes.
But Haru, however, still believes the entire time that he is the Great White Ninja,
Yes.
and
Um
that's kind of where what his whole personality is around.
yeah.
Like he does things and he assumes that he's the Great White Ninja, so everything will be okay. Where in reality, he's being a complete inconvenience to everyone around him, to the
Yes.
point where within the first 10 minutes of the movie, he basically destroys the entire ninja camp by himself.
Yes. Uh and the only reason why he actually is successful in any of his adventures is because his adoptive brother Gobe is following around, and of course he's like, one of the top ninjas, so he's like super powerful.
Yeah, he's
And
actually the
basically,
best in his class.
yeah, so he's basically following Haru around and like
Mm.
making sure everything goes right, and then ends up getting like injured and like getting like basically being like the on the receiving end of a lot of like the accidents that happen that Haru causes, uh
Hmm.
as he's just trying to save his adoptive brother.
As you'd
Um
expect it to be. I mean, he's essentially the straight man in this
yes.
in this movie,
Yeah, very much.
and Chris Farley is really just the bumbling oaf who saves it, who's the star.
Yes.
I would say hero, but he's kind of an accidental hero because he's a total klutz, as you
Yes.
see a lot in these types of movies. But Gobe, played by Robin Shu, who is Liu Kang, who was best known for being Liu Kang in the Mortal Kombat.
Yeah.
He's also a really he's also a really great actor too, and I always felt that he was very underrated, and he didn't really end up doing too many things. I feel like a lot of the projects that he got, like he's done a lot, but he hasn't done like enough enough else that's really gotten him recognized, other than being Liu Kang.
Yeah.
Um, but he kind of ends up he. It seems like if you follow his career, I mean, he does a lot of stunts as well, but he ends up he ends up getting in a lot of like mediocre movies to not great. And I don't know if this has just been like I don't know if this has been I don't know if this has just been like just his career ever since.
Yeah.
Um but he's like his American films, it's a lot of like B-ish to not like well-known movies like he was in the DOA Dead or Alive movie. He was
Which
in
was awful.
both Death Race movies. Didn't see any of them.
I didn't
Street
see them
Fighter,
either. I know they were better than Dead or Alive, but
yeah, Street Fighter: The Legend of Chun-Li, also not good.
no,
Oh, there was a third Death Race movie. I did not know that.
I didn't know that either.
Uh,
That one didn't even have Jason Statham, it looks like.
yeah, that's not a surprise.
Oh, but for
He
Ving
was
Rhames and Danny Trejo though.
he
So
was the voice of Conroy Wu and Roland Ho in Sleeping Dogs, so that's pretty cool in the video
oh
game.
yeah, that's a great game.
Um, and he's done like some TV.
Yeah.
It's but you know what? The guy's making a living, so good for him.
Yeah.
And
I'm
also
sure
he's
a
a
lot
good
of the
fighter.
roles. I'm sure he probably does a lot of stunt at like and like doubling as like martial arts, like in martial arts scenes, doing like martial. He probably does a lot of that rather than like starring roles. I'm sure because a lot of like martial artists end up doing that. Like
I
they'll
wouldn't be surprised if that's what he does more,
yeah,
but he's pretty damn cool.
yeah,
Anyway, Robin Shu kind of saves the day in this movie, just like not even literally, but he like as Gobe and being the actual martial artist in the family, but he does a good job supporting the story and helping it move along as well.
yes,
And the whole reason why he's doing anything is because it's a duty that the sensei and I guess their adoptive father is has explained to them, listen, you got to look out, like please look out for him
yes,
because he gets sent off he meets Nicolette Sheridan who she has her own thing too, and she's she comes to him looking for a ninja who could help her uncover the truth about what happened to her sister and what her a boyfriend who was dating and murdered her sister, Tanley. Of course, he's British. It's a typical '90s thing. The
yeah,
bad guy is always British for some
yes.
reason.
This is probably the most stereotypical '90s movie, like '90s action movie there is, pretty much. Like,
Yeah, I would think so. You also have Chris Rock, who is just like the token black guy. I hate to say it
yes,
that way, but he is, and he's just trying to fit in, and he's like, and he believes everything that that Haru says, and he's like, "Oh man, I'm good. Like this guy can be my friend, and he could help me like become a ninja master too." Meanwhile, Chris Farley, of course, doesn't know his ass from his elbow, but neither does this guy. So if he looks like he knows something, then he's gonna go with him, and they get into all kinds of shenanigans.
Yeah.
But Nicolette Sheridan's character, she is she's looking for a bodyguard and like a ninja who can help her uncover the truth. So of course she winds up meeting Chris Farley because he's the only ninja in the place. Because all the other ninjas are out doing an actual mission where he's just keeping watch, and for some reason they allow him to go to LA because they're probably like, okay, well, we kind of need to get him off of our hands because he's just too much trouble. And so they send him out, and then they send Gobe out, and they're like, hey dude, just keep an eye on him because he might actually be in like some real situation. He is. And well, he's trying to find this Nicolette Sheridan who claims that who tells him that her name is Sally, which is not true. But he also goes about trying to find any blonde woman named Sally in Beverly Hills, California, which is just about every woman that you run into, it seems. So, like, and some men, it turns out.
Yeah.
So he's trying to find her. He stumbles upon her and finds her, like, by accident. Robin Shu actually spots her before he does, and then we go off on this thing, and he ends up finding out what the truth is and everything. And her real name is Allison, and she's trying to figure out what's going on, and somehow, like all these things happen while he's trying to sort of train Chris Rock as badly as ever.
Yeah.
And long story short, they end up saving the day, and he becomes a real martial arts hero, and he is able to actually do real kung fu. But the interesting thing about this is there's a documentary that came out a couple of years ago about Chris Farley. I think it's just called Chris Farley or the Life of Chris Farley or something like that.
Yeah.
I saw it on Hulu. I don't know if it's still on there, but it's him, it's his friends and his family and everybody talking about it. When they talk about Beverly Hills Ninja, they get Robin Shu on, and Robin Shu um, explains that when Chris Farley first showed up and he got attached to the movie, which the movie was originally going to come out years earlier.
Yes.
In 1990, I believe, Dana Carvey was attached to the role, and Dana Carvey was actually going to be Haru, and this was going to be his movie. And Dana Carvey ended up doing this would have been his first movie, I believe, and then Dana Carvey ended up doing another movie.
Probably Wayne's World.
No, it was the movie before Wayne's World.
Oh.
I think. Oh gosh, what the heck was the name of the damn
Opportunity
movie?
Knocks.
Yes, that's
Okay.
it. So,
Yeah.
ironically enough, he does a movie called Opportunity Knocks, and that movie is a disaster. And they just decide, okay, well, we're just not gonna go. We're just not gonna do Beverly Hills Ninja, and so that falls apart. And then and then the Wayne's World thing happens, and he takes Wayne's World and Wayne's World 2, and then he becomes a megastar in his own right.
Mm-hmm.
And then along with Mike Myers, and then they end up making the movie years later with Chris Farley, and they end up recasting him and probably rewrote a few things.
Yeah.
But when I wonder how it would have probably been. I don't know. Do you think it would have been any good with Dana Carvey in this thing?
I can't imagine. So, I mean, it must have been like a heavy, like a really different movie because Dana Carvey wasn't really known for the kind of like slapstick and like physical humor that Chris Farley was known for.
No, not at all.
So,
I feel like if they did this movie with Dana Carvey as in originally intended, well, first of all, I'm sure the script was drastically different,
yes.
and like I feel like it would have just been The Master of Disguise with Ninjas,
Yeah.
which maybe we could do that movie at some point too. That's an interest. That movie's actually kind of funny.
Yeah.
Um, but
Yeah.
yeah, it probably would have been something along those lines. I
Yeah.
don't.
It would have
I
been way
doubt that it
different.
would have. Yeah, I doubt that it would have been the same thing.
Yeah. And I think that, so, well, obviously this was critically panned when it came out. It did make money at the box office. It was profitable.
Yep.
But it was panned
Not
critically.
too
And
much. It made about 31 million.
right, but on a budget of 18 million, so it
Yeah.
didn't
So
break the bank, but it, like, it didn't like
they
fail
doubled their
either.
money
Yeah.
almost. So
Yeah.
it's not terrible.
No. And again, for like a comedy, like, that's not bad. Comedy films aren't generally like huge box office, things anyway, unless it's like a really, like, really big famous, something like The Hangover or something, which was like a blockbuster comedy film. I would say this is probably not really a blockbuster comedy film. It was just kind of like okay, it's Chris Farley was hot at the time, so it's like, okay, let's do another Chris Farley movie, and what can we put him in this time? Oh, this time he's a ninja. And
Yeah.
I think Chris Farley was just kind of like riding that wave at that point. Like, he was just like, you know what, whatever, I'm going to take the role. It's not like a great role, but it's something, and
Yeah.
it's I get to do my comedy, and whatever.
Right. Well, the other thing, one of the other reasons why he got into it, and I was beginning to get to this. It's in the Chris Farley documentary, but Chris Farley was actually really into like martial arts and kung fu movies and things like
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
So so one of the reasons why he did the movie was because he really just was into that stuff already. And Robin Shue, when he was talking about, he didn't know, he saw he got the role that he got. He saw the script and he saw the movie, and then he saw Chris Farley. And when they get on set for the first time, they shake hands, I guess, or whatever, just like the regular "Hi, I'm Chris Farley. Hi, I know." Um, and he's just goes into and Robin Shue went into it thinking, "Oh, great, I'm gonna do this martial arts movie. I'm gonna do all these stunts. I'm gonna be the real deal." And then there's gonna be this asshole who's
yeah,
gonna like not care. He's the big he's the big movie star guy, so he's gonna like, and he's a comedian, so he's gonna do just his wacky jokes all the time. He's not gonna take anything seriously. This is gonna be a pain in the ass to shoot.
yeah,
And he was expecting it to, because he probably had previous experiences where it was closer to that of just
yeah,
like, he's second fiddle to some guy who like doesn't care at all about this and is just there for the paycheck.
yeah,
Um, and he then finds out that Chris Farley legitimately was interested in martial arts and he like wanted to train with him, and he would get up and like just kind of work out with him or go through things, and
yeah,
like he would learn things from him, and he really did collect, he did collect like ninja swords and stuff like that, and he really did like it.
yeah,
And they like bonded over it and they became very good friends while filming this movie.
yeah,
So that's a lesson to some of you out there in digital media device land, to never judge a book by its cover. But also, if you're a martial arts movie with a fellow of Chris Farley's size, then maybe cut him some slack. He might actually really want to do this.
yeah.
But
Well, I mean, Chris Farley was known, like, he was probably like, one of the biggest, like, you would never guess that the way he could move and like the crazy stuff he could do, because he is like was so energetic and would do like flips and like cartwheels and stuff, and you would be like, how is a guy that's this big like doing all the stuff that he does? It was
yeah,
like
that was
ridiculous.
part of what made him funny. Was just all
Exactly.
of the things that he could do with his body.
Yeah. Yeah, and
It's
it's kind of sad because I think Chris Farley obviously knew, like, he was very like self-deprecating in that regard, and I think that really got to him and kind of led to his drug abuse and then eventual obviously death from it.
well, it was part of that, and also the group, and also he, because he became a big star, he
Mhm.
obviously got a lot of the other things that come around to it, and one of those things is just a toxic group of friends and hangers
Right.
on and entourage and all that stuff.
Probably
And
Andy Dick.
I don't know.
Andy Dick is directly responsible for what's his face? Phil Hartman's death. Did you know that?
No, I did not know that.
Yeah, so Andy Dick gave Phil Hartman's wife, who was a recovering cocaine addict, drugs and
Oh
got her back
no.
hooked on cocaine, and that's what led to her killing Phil Hartman, and then I think she killed herself too. I
She
think it was a
did kill
murder suicide.
herself.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
So,
No, I did not know
I
that.
and he was, like, in those crowds, like, that was, like, the '90s, like, comedy scene. It was, like, a lot of guys that were on SNL and, like, so it was, like, Phil Hartman and Adam Sandler, Chris Farley, Chris Rock, um, David Spade. They all kinda, like, hung out. I'm sure Andy Dick was in those parties too, so I would
Is
not be surprised if he was the one that got, Chris Farley hooked on coke.
I mean, it's possible. I really don't know. I wasn't at those parties. I was
Yeah.
6 years old, so.
Yeah.
And if I was at those parties, there's something wrong with my parents.
Well,
Well,
I
I
mean,
mean, we knew that already, but besides the point,
well,
there
it's
would have been
messed up
more
because
wrong.
there were plenty of parents in Hollywood of child stars that let their kids go to those parties, and
Oh
that's why they
yeah.
became friggin', the way
Well,
they
yeah, Drew
are.
Barrymore had issues when she was,
Yep,
like 12. She had
Lindsay Lohan.
problems. Yeah. Yeah, it
Yeah,
happens.
yeah,
But but um but yeah, the whole like just hanging out with the wrong people and really just getting into that culture and that life as well as just being depressed a lot. When you combine those things, it's all that. And like Chris Farley, he was a very troubled guy, like just as brilliant
yes,
as he was on stage. He
yes,
was just he was just a really sad he was a very sad and like depressed guy behind it, and it really sucks because he wanted to like meet a girl and like settle down and everything, and he just didn't think that any woman was interested in him legitimately for who he was. So like if there was any time where if there was any time where he was doing great with like just a woman on the street or anything, he would self-sabotage himself because he would just think, "Oh, well, she doesn't really care about me, so she just came here to see the fat guy fall, so I'm going to like throw myself on the table and break it or something."
yeah,
And it like he would just do this constantly, and and it's it's
yeah. It's
because
very
the
sad.
guy like he for some reason, I mean, it just goes with depression. You can't see what you have, and you can't see what's right in front of you, as
Yes,
plain as the note is on your face, because you're just dealing with, well, yourself.
yeah,
And he like for a guy who thought that for the guy like for a guy who thought that nobody loved him, he just he couldn't break the cycle and realize that everyone did.
yeah, yeah. Uh, and I a lot of comedians like in that headspace. There's been a lot of comedians that have committed suicide, and
Oh yeah.
like there's a lot, and I think a lot of the comedians that have committed suicide or OD'd, or whatever, lived fast, and died. I think a lot of it is because of like they had entered comedy as a defense mechanism against their depression, kind of, as a coping mechanism.
Yeah.
Being like comedians, and a lot of you'll notice like a lot of like self-deprecating comedians like are like that. It's like it's part of their like way that they cope with the mental illness that they have, and sometimes it's just not enough, and that's when you see these instances like Chris Farley and
Right. I mean,
others.
and also just rising to fame so quickly, especially as quickly as Chris did.
Yeah,
Like you don't know how to handle it. I mean, I
yeah,
don't think anybody really knows how. I'm not a famous person, so I don't know, but I sure as hell know that I probably have I'd have a weird thing about that. I'd definitely be confused. Like, I feel like the first time somebody recognizes you, that's a cool feeling, and then by the 100th time, you're like, "Oh God, why do these people know who I am?" So I can
yeah,
only imagine that on like a grander scale where everybody knows who you are. Then then you got all these other things, and then you can't trust anybody, and then you got somebody who's like, "Oh, I'm a big fan. I know everything about you," and you're like, "Why? Why? Like, what is so interesting about me? Like, because I'm on TV? What's the big deal?"
Yeah.
And then and if you're already depressed to begin with, then that's going to compound everything else that you've got going on. So I can only imagine what he was going through.
Yeah.
Plus, whatever insecurities you have, if you're going to be on camera, then that's gonna compound even more too. So just get everything just get everything bad that you've got in a box, and then quadruple it where it can't fit in the box anymore, and and the box is falling apart, and then it starts raining, and the box is cardboard, by the way, so that's pretty much disintegrating. That's basically was going on.
Yeah. Yeah.
But God, he was just brilliant. And I mean, if you watch
Yes.
Tommy Boy or Black Sheep or anything that he did, really, it was
Yeah.
just he was hysterical.
He was hilarious, Chris Farley, and the world lost a great talent when he passed. And I would have loved to see Shrek with him.
Oh
I
yeah,
obviously I know why they had to re-record his vocal lines, because it wasn't finished, and they weren't gonna you know hire someone just to do the few lines that needed to be finished. So,
right. Well, they were going to get his brother John to do it,
oh really?
and he just couldn't bring himself to do it at the time, even though he
Yeah.
wishes that he could do it.
Yeah.
But like his brother has said, I wish that I was able to do this for him, but
Uh-huh.
I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
And there was like 5 days left of line readings left.
Yeah.
But I totally understand why his brother couldn't do it. And then then we ended up getting Mike Myers to do it.
Yeah.
But it's really interesting. That I would have liked to see what that was
It would
too.
have been interesting. It would have been
I mean,
really
we've
interesting.
talked about it on the Shrek episode,
Yeah, we did. And
like at length, but I really would be interested to go to that universe and do
yeah.
that. Maybe like I don't know, do we really even need a time machine? I feel like maybe a universe hopping machine might be more fun,
Yeah.
just to see all the infinite possibilities. But
W- w-
the trick is you got to remember which one you're from, because you could
Well,
really get lost.
speaking of that, um there's an interesting thing that's been going on now with this AI art. I don't know if you've heard about this, where the AI generated art is getting super advanced. I mean,
Oh yeah, it's winning things.
yeah,
It's
well,
winning various contests. It's it's very good.
yeah, well, people are making these YouTube videos of pictures, and that basically they're putting in stuff what if Duke Nukem was an 80s action movie? And it's making it looks like screenshots from an actual film of Duke Nukem in the 1980s. And it looks like an 80s action movie,
Oh
with
wow.
Arnold Schwarzenegger playing Duke Nukem or something. So my obviously if you extrapolate this out, eventually we're probably going to get to the point where you could type in anything you want, and it'll make a movie complete with sound effects and dialogue and and voice acting, all AI generated, not one human besides you typing in the prompts. That's it, so
What?
really we could have a what if machine, oh, let's see what it would be like if Chris Farley was able to play Shrek, and it'll make that movie. It'll generate that movie. And obviously, this is a few years off, probably. I would say, but it could be the next 10 to 15 years where you're seeing this, AI generated movies, and you could just type in whatever you want into the prompt.
Jesus.
So, I mean, that would be something, to see, and there's a lot of AI aging, oh, let's see what this person would look like today if they were still alive. So they could very easily make an AI generated Chris Farley and do a new Chris Farley movie that's all AI generated, and it's his voice and everything.
Oh, that would be weird.
It would be very strange. And
I
I
don't I don't think I would I wouldn't feel comfortable with that. I wouldn't
yeah
feel comfortable watching something like that, cuz
I,
one, I know it's not really him, and two,
Yeah.
like, he's gone.
Yeah.
Let him, just let the guy rest.
Well, I mean, really though, it's just like a computer generated image. So really, is it disturbing his rest? You know?
It's just weird to see.
Obviously,
I
there's
wouldn't
ethical
want
questions because like people
that's
are
that's
now
really my issue is more on the ethics.
right, and well, especially with like copyrighted like things like can you generate like if I wanted to see something like say I wanted to see a movie based off of Star Wars Heir to the Empire, the novel, if and I taped it into an AI to make it, would Disney sue me for doing that, uh
Uh,
so that's going to be a thing that they're going to
yeah,
have to
that's
work out too.
possible. Well, I mean, there's also just the ethics of like using the likeness of a deceased person
Well,
and
yeah,
like
exactly, yeah.
directly. That's the biggest issue. It's like there was the there was this thing a couple of years ago with the Anthony Bourdain documentary where at the end there was a letter that he wrote.
Hmm.
Um, he used AI to generate his voice to read that note,
Oh yeah, yeah,
and because he had passed by then, and there was a lot of moral and ethical concerns about that. I mean, also, I don't think his surviving members knew that they were going to do that, and so that's already an issue.
yeah.
But it was like you could tell that it's a computer,
Right.
but it sounds like him, and I mean, what like that's an issue in the voiceover world is there's a
Yeah.
concern that AI generated voices are like
Yeah.
what's going to happen there.
Well, I mean, that's
Um
been a concern about,
it's been a
robots are gonna
concern
take our jobs
it's
eventually,
been a concern for it's been a concern for the longest like since the idea of robots
Yeah,
and like an automation.
it's a concern of just robots in general and AI in general that eventually they're just gonna replace humans and everything, which
Yeah,
might not be a bad thing because, then humans are free to pursue, like, creative avenues and do, that kinda thing, if
which I
robots
think
are
is
doing.
partly what we're designed to do anyway.
Yes.
We
So
we are built to create as much as we are built to destroy,
yeah.
and there's just all these other constructs that have been created over time that have hindered that quite a bit from what our original meaning of life is, so that we've lost all not semblance of it, or
Yeah.
lost all ancient information that was supposed to be with us to this day that we may or may not ever discover or
Yeah.
be or like whether or not we do it organically or it just happens to be that way or it gets released and then we learn how we can do it, who the hell knows. But anyway, getting back to Chris Farley, there he had a lot of untitled and just the possibilities of things that could have been.
Mhm.
He was attached to a lot of projects actually
Yes.
that that his death complicated. He was going to co-star in The Gelfin with Vince Vaughn, which I don't really know what that is, to be honest with you. I'm just reading off a list of things that Chris Farley was supposed to be doing had he not passed. I don't know if that's a movie or if The Gelfin is a play, but he was going to co-star with Vince Vaughn in that. I imagine it was a movie or a show.
Uh-huh.
Um, and he was gonna star in, and he was gonna there was gonna be a biography about the film Fatty Arbuckle,
Yeah.
um, who is probably the OG of weight jokes,
Yeah.
um, which he would have been perfect for, not because he was heavy, but also because he could probably relate to the character very well, and I think it would have showed his true range as an actor. He also was supposed to be the cable guy in the
Yes.
movie of the same name, but he ended up not. He had to decline because of scheduling conflicts, and Jim Carrey ended up taking that thing to the
Hmm.
cleaners and like really knocking it out of the park. Which we could talk about that movie at some point too,
Yeah.
because that's a deranged story about friendship.
Yeah. It's a
um,
great movie.
it is a great movie. Um, but yeah, we'll have another day where we talk about that. And he was also going to be Ishmael in Kingpin, who was the ringer bowler happens to be Amish. I've never seen that movie all the way through, but it's a unique comedy. I'll say it at that. And that one he ended up having to turn that one down because he did Black Sheep, which is also another very funny movie.
Yeah.
And there was a third Ghostbusters film, which at the time did not happen.
Which would have
He
been
was,
amazing.
it would have been, he was going to be, I guess it would have been the original, what was going to be the rumored Ghostbusters movie for years,
Yeah.
where it was going to be a new Ghostbusters, like, it was going to be like the next generation of Ghostbusters getting
Yes.
the torches passed to them and everything. And um, he was also going to be playing I think the guy's name is Erasmus, maybe in in a Confederacy of Dunces,
Hmm.
a film adaptation of that movie, and it was just so funny. If you've
Yeah.
ever if you've ever heard about the book Confederacy of Dunces, it is so funny, and that would be another interesting episode. We're brainstorming this episode. We're getting our whole calendar out. But that is the funniest book I have ever read. I read it on the buck. I read it on the bus, and I've read it on the train, and I need to get another copy of it because I lent it to some girl who never spoke to me again, and now
Oh.
it's gone forever.
Oh no.
Uh, but that book is so damn funny. I read it on the bus and the train, laughing hysterically, and everybody else thought that I was a lunatic, and I'm like, no, it's the book, and they're like, yeah, okay. I swear to God, these people thought that I was deranged. They weren't wrong, but they, but they had a hunch, and completely ignored that I was reading a book.
Well, people. It's I don't know. See, that surprises me that anyone even cared because I've seen crazy shit on the subway, and people usually just don't even look up from their phones or their book or whatever.
No, it's kind of sad.
Yeah.
And there was also an adaptation of the novel The Incomparable Atuk, which I don't know what that was,
I don't know
but
that either.
Chris Farley was considering playing Atuk. But both of these projects and the Arbuckle thing have been alleged to be cursed.
Yes.
So, because Chris Farley, John Belushi, and John Candy were each attached to several of those roles,
Yes.
and they all died before they entered production.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, and
Yeah.
it's also sad.
Yeah.
But oh
And
gosh,
there's
I
like a mini truth or whacked right there for you.
yeah, yeah, that is an interesting. We haven't done one of those in a long time,
Yeah, we
actually.
have not done a truth or whacked in a long time.
All right, just maybe we'll do something a little bit down the road.
Yeah.
But yeah, Chris Farley, it's just
It
so
sucks.
it's
It sucks
crazy.
that Beverly Hills Ninja was his last movie released while he was alive because it was not good. Well, not
Oh, it's
as
called
good as
I
he
Am
was.
Chris Farley. That's the name of it.
Oh, okay. For that documentary for those wondering if you want to
Yes.
watch it, I am Chris Farley. Um, but anyway, it Beverly Hills Ninja, which is often regarded as his worst movie, and it was his last one released alive, so that kind of sucks because I wouldn't say it tarnished his legacy, but it kind of it's like I don't know. I think it probably affected him a lot. That was like the last movie he did before. Well, obviously it didn't affect him after he had died, but I'm sure
Well,
it
yeah.
wasn't good that the movie got released and it was panned. Um, So, I mean, I think it's kind of gotten a cult following since then. You know, I think people kind of enjoy it and can appreciate it for what it is now. Um, but yeah, it's definitely it does suck that it was, you know, his last one you know,
Hmm.
came out while he was alive. And
Right,
you know,
and also you know that he would have that. Well, I mean, this goes to say that it's a similar situation with John Belushi, who also was his idol, who
yeah,
also died of a drug overdose at the same age that he did at 33. Um, he he I lost my train of thought for a minute. Oh, there you go. He like there's several actors that would not have careers had he not passed.
yeah.
Like Kevin James would not have ever entered an Adam Sandler production.
Oh yeah, it would have
I'm not
always
sure
been
what he
Chris
would have
Farley.
been doing after King of Queens, but he would have never the thought would have never ever been there for anything Adam Sandler related or Happy Madison Productions related. There would be no Paul Blart with him, or maybe there would be no Paul Blart at all. There would be like every role in Grown Ups and every Adam Sandler movie would have Chris Farley in it
Yeah,
rather than Kevin James.
yeah,
Um, and the same goes for John Belushi. His brother Jim Belushi is basically a stand-in for him because he's
yes,
just not around.
yeah. Except not nearly as good, unfortunately.
No, I mean it's the same
I
situation for both of them.
yeah.
Neither of their pseudo replacements, if you will, were
Yeah.
like are
I mean,
any
and I like
like
Jim.
hold a candle to them. I
I
don't
want to put
mind Jim.
a thing there. I like Jim Belushi. Like he is funny in the roles he's in, but he is not John Belushi. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Like
I don't mind him. I sound like I hate him
yeah,
and hate his guts, and I totally don't. I respect him.
yeah,
He's good at what he does, but he's just fine.
yeah.
That it's just his
He's
brother
the
was just that much funnier. There's
he's the
nothing you
great
could do about
value
it.
John Belushi. You know, like
Yeah,
um. But yeah, and the same thing, Kevin James, and it's
Kevin
interesting
James I
because
don't particularly like.
I don't like him either.
I've only liked him in King of Queens, and for the most part, I was watching the show for Jerry Stiller.
Yeah, and the King of Queens is good. I don't like Kevin James's movies so much.
No,
I
it
now
was
pronounce you Chuck and Larry was kind of okay.
that was
Um,
fine.
yeah, but that was because of Adam Sandler. Like Adam Sandler
Yes,
carried that movie.
yeah.
Um, I wanted to make one comment that's kind of interesting is that the film Beverly Hills Ninja was directed by Dennis Dugan, and which is interesting because it was bookended by two good movies that he directed.
Hmm.
Right before Beverly Hills Ninja, he had directed Happy Gilmore, and right after he directed Big Daddy, which are like two of the like classic Adam Sandler comedies.
Yeah.
You know, so it's weird that this one was just like a you know like it was just off. It wasn't you know it wasn't his best work, and it wasn't Chris Farley's best work.
Yeah, I wonder if I mean, you just don't bat 1,000. Like nobody bats 1,000 in anything. That's
Yeah,
really all that I could say
yeah,
to that is just I guess they did the best that they could.
yep. And again, I don't want
Because
to
I mean, if
feel
you
like
look
I
at
hate
because I
him.
mean, if you look at the movie on paper, you're just, well, how the hell is this going to work?
Yeah.
You know, so I think they did the best that they could.
Yeah. Well, and I just want to like say that I don't hate this movie.
No,
I like it. I
I
enjoy
liked
watching
it
it.
too. It was a good movie to watch on New Year's Day.
Yeah. It's just not it's mediocre. You know, it's very like this is like if Chris Farley didn't die and had kept making movies after this. Like I mean there was two movies that were released posthumously, but if he had kept making regular movies and lived, you know, and up to today or whatever, this would have been like one of those like, oh, that's not a good like yeah, if we're gonna watch a Chris Farley marathon, like that's the one we skip, you know? Like
Yeah.
I think it's kind of got a cult following because it was his last movie like was released while he was alive, you know? And
Hmm.
you know, so people want to see it because it's, you know, it's your like last chance to see Chris Farley. Again, besides those two posthumous movies, which I've never seen actually. and
No, I haven't seen them either. It's Almost Heroes
yeah,
and
and Dirty Work,
Dirty
which he wasn't
Work.
even starring in. He was just
He wasn't even credited in
yeah,
that one.
yeah,
Well, at least for this movie, he was nominated for an MTV Movie Award for the best comedic performance, which that means whatever you want it to mean, I guess.
yeah,
I mean, this was also '97 when MTV meant something.
yeah,
So there's also that if you want to look into context. But I would say that, well, it's a shame that this was that the last movie that he went on was kind of a stinker in his career.
yeah.
But he was coming off of Black Sheep and Tommy Boy, yeah, so it's
It's yeah,
so you
it's
know,
that's hard to live up to that. And
yeah,
again, if he had lived, it would have been, he would have done Beverly Hills Ninja. It would have been like a one-off thing that was not good. And I'm sure he would have gone on to be in like a really good movie after that.
yeah. Well, it would have been Shrek.
Yeah, it
It
would have
would
been
have been,
Shrek. Yeah,
yeah, it
so
would have been
it
Shrek.
would have been a hit.
Yeah. Well, I
So
mean, we don't really know if like Shrek with Chris Farley would have been a hit.
I think it would have been a
I
hit.
think it would have.
I think it would have.
I want to say that it would have that movie would have been a hit regardless of who was starring in it between Chris
Yes.
Farley and Mike Myers. I think either of them it would have been a hit no matter what.
Yes.
But uh, I and I would like to visit that universe and see that movie someday.
Yeah.
And maybe get to hang out with Chris Farley. I won't participate in any other activities, but it would be nice to just say hello and you
Yeah.
know, play video games with Chris Farley or something. Um, I do, however, want to know what those other movies would have looked like. Like he would have got like would he have been Fatty Arbuckle, and
Yeah.
would he have been Erasmus in Confederacy of Dunces? I think if he had done I think if he, I don't think the Cable Guy would have been as good because I could see a lot of like the Chris Farley gags just happening a little more consistently of what he's known for, and I don't know if that would have fit. I think the Cable Guy is better. I think the Cable Guy is probably better with Jim Carrey than it would have been with Chris Farley.
Hmm.
But I would still like to see it. But I think the Fatty Arbuckle movie, I think it would have shown his true range as an actor, and I think that might have really taken him into more serious roles.
Yeah.
I do believe that. But, it's one of those things we'll never know unless we end up getting a alternate universe machine at some
Yeah.
point. Which,
Well.
I mean, who the hell knows? Maybe we will. I mean, I'm reading now that scientists are like finding out that time works completely differently than we've perceived it to be, and that time might not even exist at all in
Yeah.
in
Well,
some circles.
they've
So
also
even that's so now that time is up for debate.
they've also made like a kind of a discovery, which I'm gonna butcher this, and obviously, but basically it's like the whole like, if a tree falls in the forest, does it make a sound thing? Well, they proved that it doesn't make a sound. Like things that aren't observed aren't real, basically. So
Oh
wrap your head
boy.
around that one.
Then there's a lot of reality that I don't seem to have.
Yeah.
So I guess nobody can really get a grip on reality.
Right.
Because what is it?
Yep.
Oh,
Just what we see and hear.
I mean, in a way, they're right. You do only see and hear whatever you choose to, whatever you choose to, or whatever chooses to come into contact with you in
Yep.
your world. That's what's going on.
We create our own reality.
I guess so. I mean, that does make sense with the law of attraction and everything.
Yeah.
So perhaps it's true. But who
Well,
knows?
yeah.
Uh, but but I do like Beverly Hills Ninja, having watched it for the first time, and there are a lot of fun running gags in there.
Yes.
And the fight, and I will say the martial arts is pretty good in that movie.
Hmm.
Like the fight scenes are actually legitimately good. Robin Shu is really great,
Well, yeah, he's a
and
great
all of
martial
his
artist, so
he is a great martial artist, and everything that he's doing in the movie makes sense, and it's a lot of fun. There is some Jackie Chan-isms in there,
Yes.
but for the most part, he's like doing his own thing, and it's pretty different. And like one particular scene that I liked was when they're fighting in the sushi in the hibachi place, and
Okay.
Haru's trying to spy on what the hell is the bad guy's name?
Uh, uh,
Taran or something?
Tanley. Martin
Tanley.
Tanley.
Tanley, that's right. It's Tanley and his right hand man, and they're having a discussion about like what's going on with the situation. I'm trying not to spoil it too much, and they're at the hibachi place, and Haru is spying on them, disguised as the hibachi chef. He has no idea how to do hibachi, and he's trying to do what the other guy's doing. So he's of course a huge klutz, and Gobe is dressed as a woman right next to them, and just like chatting it up with the other girls, pretending to be a woman because he's just being the shadow. Of course, the entire up until like the last scene, he doesn't like go. There's no knowledge that like Haru has no knowledge that Gobe is right there beside the entire time.
Mhm.
Um, and he he like they start like something get somehow he gets found out because it's too obvious, and he's like he grabs like a fish. He grabs two fish and he starts hitting the guy with the fish, and he's using them in place of swords, which is already funny. And there's the whole group of guys that comes out and like and they're fighting them off. And there's one poor son of a bitch who just keeps getting like burned on the hibachi platform in the same spot, and that kind of cracks me up. And there's also like the gag in there where they rip off the guy goes to grab um Gobe, and and it turns out that he was wearing a woman's wig, but the woman's wig, the hair is identical to the hair that he already has. so it's a pretty funny visual.
Yeah.
But like the fight scene is actually really good, and there's a whole bunch of stuff that also goes on. People get kidnapped. There's you find out what's really going on, which I don't know if we really need to spoil it or anything, but I mean the movie came out almost 30 years ago at this point. So I mean if you
Mhm.
haven't seen it, you haven't seen it. But you get into this whole like money laundering conspiracy and like counterfeiting and everything like that, and you figure out what's really going on, and it's really it's if you got nothing going on, I would suggest that you watch it, and you can watch it for free right now on Tubi.
Toby.
You're just gonna see some really weird ads.
Maybe it's Tubby, not Tubi.
You think it's Tubby?
No, it's probably Tubi.
I don't know. I mean, I noticed in the logo, like the I like shows up at the last minute and like pops out of the U or the T or something, and it's just like, and like all the letters show up like they're supposed to on time, and then the I is just like, wait, I'm here, guys, I'm here. Oh, 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 oh. Did I miss anything? Are we all right? Oh God, I'm fired, aren't I? I'm gonna get fired. I have a family. I can't get fired. And then the T beats the shit out of the I and says, "Hold! Why don't you get a hold of yourself?" And then the U walks up to the I and it slaps it in the face and it says, "Get a hold of yourself." And then the B walks over with a hand grenade and just shoves it in the I's face and just says, "Get a hold of yourself," and walks off. That's not what happens at all. In case you don't know what I'm referencing, it's the movie Airplane, which would be another episode that we could do at some point in the future.
Yes.
But Beverly Hills Ninja, it's not the greatest movie. It's definitely not the best movie in Chris Farley's archive. It's sad that it's the last one, but I would say that it's worth watching just to say you saw it.
Yeah.
And Chris Rock is in the movie too. That's kind of it. It's like this is the movie, and Chris Rock happens to be in it for
Yeah.
some reason.
Yeah.
But I didn't mind his character. I thought he was kind of fun being there as just Joey, the poor bellhop who gets more than he needs. I mean, another good running gag is how the Japanese in Japanese culture, you remove your shoes before you enter a house or something, and So he does that, and someone keeps stealing his shoes because
Oh
they
yeah,
think that it's some idiot just left their shoes there.
yeah, because he keeps like he'll like walk into any building, he'll remove his shoes. So like a hotel lobby, like a store, he removes his shoes. Like
Yeah, it's a hoot.
yeah,
But
it's
yeah, it
got some
has
funny
it
gags.
has its moments. It has
Yeah,
its moments. I will say that. It's like it isn't, oh God, when is it going to be over? It's just okay. This is this is the movie.
yeah,
That's about it.
it's
And
acceptable.
yeah, I would say it's an acceptable movie.
Yeah,
It's not comedic gold, but it's at least comedic bronze.
yeah,
I guess that's the best way to put it.
yeah,
But yeah, I don't got anything else to say on this.
yeah.
What's the line that I'm trying to get? I got no more use for this guy.
And
But
that's all I have to say about that.
all right. Well, thanks for sticking around, everybody. We're glad that we're glad that you've decided to stick with us. Holds Foyer again. We apologize for the technical difficulties on the Jingle All the Way episode. We will try to figure things out, and we'll try to get you back on, and we'll see how Craig does. Um, but that has been Why Does This Exist? I have been Chris.
And I've been Rob.
Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year and good night.